Right, so if you're familiar with my channel, you know that I can sometimes be a bit critical of things. For example, the way I'm dressed today. I look like Eminem from 8 Mile, but I'm having a bad hair day, okay, let me off. The Walking Dead is something that I've shared mixed views on, but having rewatched the first season recently, I actually feel quite positive about the early seasons of the show, and I want to do a little mini-series talking about the earlier seasons of the show. I mean, let me tell you something. The first season of the show is so good. I just have to go back through it and explain why everyone fell in love with this show in the first place. Because the last few seasons of the show, let's be honest, we don't enjoy them as much. But these early seasons, boy, is that where it's at. So please remember to like and subscribe, and let's go through it. Episode 1. Episode 1 of The Walking Dead is potentially one of the best episodes of the entire series. It does a really good job of setting the scene and putting you in the shoes of our hero, Rick Grimes. And of course, Rick Grimes is played by a fellow Brit, Andrew Lincoln, or if you want to refer to him by his real name, Andrew James Clutterbuck. I mean, if I was his wife, I would not take that name, Jesus Christ. Nonetheless, the episode opens up on this scene of Rick walking around an abandoned gas station and he sees this little girl. The scene is kind of iconic, by the way. If you can't tell it's a little girl, Rick makes it pretty obvious. He says little girl about 5 times in this scene.
Little girl, little girl, little girl.
By the way, leave a comment and let me know what you think of Rick's accent. There's quite a lot of dispute over it, but I like it. This is where we get our first M. Night Shyamalan twist. The little girl is a zombie, and Rick domes her with his python. Wait, that sounds a bit wrong, doesn't it? I really like this introduction. It sets the tone quite nicely, and again, it's iconic. It's dark, it's gritty, I love it. Killing children, always the best way to start off a TV programme, let's be honest. So we see a flashback set several weeks before the apocalypse, and Rick is sat in the car with his best friend Shane. They're both sheriffs, and they're trading stories about women or light switches or something, and as Rick complains about his wife, we get a call. Rick gets shot.
Bada bing, you blow their brains all over your nice Ivy League suit.
He wakes up in a coma, and the opening of this episode is just so good. I love the opening of this episode so much. It's just constant drama. Rick wakes up from his coma, and we're placed in this completely new world a month into the outbreak. Some would say 28 days later. That influence is definitely there. I mean, I don't know when the comic book was written, but I'll have to look into that. I love a lot of the cinematography and visuals we get, especially some of the makeup. It really sets the scene that Rick is alone in this world, and it helps us discover this world with him. Greg Nicotero is really talented, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for bringing these zombies back to life. Some of the stunts they do throughout the seasons, honestly, they're incredible. And I love that it's not all CGI, especially because the CGI in this show, it's best to avoid it. We see one game-ended person in particular that's missing the bottom half of their body. I mean, maybe they left it in their car, I don't know what's gone on here, but I think it's a really creative way of freaking Rick out, and a creative way of freaking us out as well, because this person is definitely dead, and the confusion, we know we're watching a zombie show. Rick has no idea where he is. He must be so confused. And again, Andrew Lincoln acts us out so well. Morgan Jones is in this episode too, which is great because we get 2 British men pretending to be American. I absolutely love that. And to me, these seem like red-blooded Americans. Rick's got the bloody flag in his house. I mean, this man attends Charlie Kirk rallies, I just know it. He's supporting him in all the debates. Morgan drops a lot of exposition in this episode, but I like how it's explained to Rick and us. I think it's quite a nice way of sort of telling us what's going on, especially because there's a lot of confusion for the audience and Rick at this point. Again, it's a really good idea putting Rick in this position because it helps us as an audience understand and come up to speed with this new world. And this is where the term walkers is coined, unless you're British. We already have that term for something else. But more importantly, Rick's goal is set. He has to find his family. This is a really powerful motive. Moving forward, Rick puts on his cop uniform, gets his guns, and heads towards Atlanta. He sends out a radio message, which is received by a group involving his best friend and his wife. Let me tell you something. This gets juicy. Rick's best friend, Shane, is revealed to be sleeping with his wife, Laurie. Oh my god. Andrew James Clutterbuck. More like Andrew Cook. That was bad, I'm sorry, but come on. I wrote a script. You can tell I wrote a script for this one. When I was a kid, watching this show for the first time, maybe I was 14 or so, I thought this was the sickest reveal, and it is just what the kids would call tea. This is just gossip. This is just something that really drives the characters in this show. This is, it's such a cool dynamic. We cut back to Rick, who's now in Atlanta, but of course he only finds trouble, and unfortunately the ending of this episode is covered by copyrighted music. I wish I could play it for you, but it's such a good ending, and Rick finds himself in his tank. There's no escape. It's good. I love it. Maybe the best episode of the show. It might be. It might be. I think the biggest compliment I can give episode 1 of this show is that it doesn't only work on its own as a pilot, but it makes you want to watch more. Every character they introduce, they have really interesting motivations. The plot gives a lot of promise, and the premise itself isn't that original. Again, I cited 28 Days Later. It's been done before The Walking Dead, but it's definitely interesting. Even if you've watched this series, going back and watching episode 1 now, it's hard not to pick up this series again. Just go watch episode 1 after you finish this video, because it is one of the best episodes of this show. That is for sure. And maybe one of the best pilots I've ever seen. So episode 2, in my opinion, is a really strong follow-up. Rick is helped by everyone's favourite watermelon, Glenn. If you know, you know. By the way, Stephen Yeun, he's super successful now, so fair play to him. I love him as an actor, and I'm really glad he found success after the show, because I was actually a little worried he wouldn't, but he's an incredibly talented guy, and he's done so well, so fair play to him. Rick is introduced to a new group of survivors, most notably Merle. I really love Michael Rooker as Merle, and this is such an interesting way to introduce the group. Merle is just being absolutely vile and racist, but there's nobody to tell him otherwise, and it's so interesting seeing someone like this and how they behave in a world with no authority. They have an interesting conversation, and Rick has some choice words.
Look here, Merle. Things are different now. There are no niggers anymore.
Rick, you know you can't use that word. Andrea is a great character in the comics. I really love her character in the comics. But in this show, I can't lie, I kind of hate her. I don't want to blame the actress, and I don't know if it's even the writing, but something about her in this show, you know, this introductory scene of her, she's just so annoying. I can't quite put a finger on it. I really don't like her in this show. And of course the character gets worse, but from the get-go, I just don't like her in the show. The group is in a building surrounded by zombies, and it's the first time in the show that our characters have to figure a way around that. You know, it's a premise that gets kind of old, but this is the first time they bring it into the show, and it's definitely interesting here. All they know about the walkers is that they identify their meals through their scent, so they think it's a good idea to, well, lather themselves in guts. Now, it would be an interesting bit if I did that in this video, but it's a bit messy. I don't want to do all the cleaning. Nah, I can't do it. I've always loved this scene where they're putting the guts on themselves. The actress who plays Andrea, she literally breaks character. It just looks like they're having a ball on set. I would have absolutely loved to have been a fly on the wall here. We're also introduced to Wayne Dunlap.
Wayne Dunlap. If I ever find my family, I'm gonna tell them about Wayne.
I would like to mention that Rick never ever mentions Wayne Dunlap to his family, which is possibly the worst thing his character does. Anyway, they escape, everyone except Merle, who has been cuffed to the roof. And of course, T-Dog drops the key down a drain. I don't know. I think he was too busy filming his TikTok lives to be thinking about keys and drains. Check him out on TikTok Live, by the way.
I just get to run my mouth. My wife doesn't like to hear me run my mouth so much.
Tell It to the Frogs is the third episode of this season, and it starts off really big. Rick reunites with his family, which I think is a bit easy. It's kind of fortunate, but there's only 6 episodes to this season, and I can understand why they went with this rather than making it sort of a bit more difficult for him. We're also introduced to the best character in the show, Daryl, and we get this absolutely iconic scene, probably the best scene in history.
Who are you?
Rick Grimes.
Rick Grimes? You got something you want to tell me? Let me process this. You saying you handcuffed my brother to a roof? And you left him there?
Yeah.
So Daryl's a bit upset that his brother Merle was left behind, but T-Dog obviously locked the door so Merle wouldn't die. So Rick feels bad. He takes Daryl, T-Dog, and Glenn back to Atlanta, where they find out that Merle has actually just cut his own hand off. I mean, that's pretty insane. That's pretty crazy. Fair play, Merle. It's crazy that Michael Rooker only has one episode in this season, and he leaves such an imprint. Obviously, he returns back later in the show, but what a character and what an actor. That's pretty much the whole episode. This middle bit of the season really does slam the brakes and go, whoa, easy, Tiger. The budget doesn't go that far. This becomes a bit of a problem in later seasons where they triple the runtime of the seasons, but half the budget. Hey, at least each season was coming out once a year. That's more than you get now. Christ, I'll probably have grandchildren by the time the next season's Severance comes out. So, episode 4. A lot of uninteresting stuff happens at the camp, but we still follow Rick's group in Atlanta. Glenn, who we find out is Korean.
You got some balls for a Chinaman.
I'm Korean.
Whatever.
Glenn gets kidnapped, and there's a whole beef. Oh wait, that's another Stephen Yeun show. But we get a second M. Night Shyamalan twist. And it turns out, these bad guys are actually good guys. And they're just taking care of old people. Wow. Uninteresting. I don't like this twist. Boring. Move on. They're very scary dogs though. They get Glenn back and realise that the van is gone. Assumably, Merle has taken it to get vengeance back on the camp. And let me tell you something. It's been a while since anything interesting has actually happened. So we finally get to see a horde of walkers attack the group. We lose important characters like Amy, which is a bit of a shock, I guess, because she was on the promotional posters. She also had a line of dialogue in the last episode, I think. I don't know, she was in a good ski movie. That was a good movie, I like that. Most importantly, we lose Ed, who is obviously the most important character in the show, and a massive loss to the group. Rest in peace, Ed. I'm surprised Shane didn't go in and bite him, to be honest. He absolutely beat the shit out of him in the last episode, it's insane. I quite like this scene, it's nice to get a bit of action in this season, but to be honest, it's not aged great. The action in the later seasons is probably a bit better, but hey, at least we get a fun little scene. This is very 2010. Episode 5. You can really tell the budget has depleted at this point because episode 5, it's a bit of a stinker. Nothing is happening, you know, the group are recovering from the attack, and it's a bit of a slower episode. We're sort of reflecting on what has happened. We get this one great scene where Shane points his gun at Rick, and Dale appears out of nowhere. This is just an absolute classic. This is how I'm looking at you if you've gotten this far into the video and you've not hit that subscribe button and liked the video. Do it. We do also get to see Jim, or whatever this guy's name is, turn, which is what they call it when you get bitten by a zombie and then slowly die and then turn into a zombie or a walker. So we get to see Jim turn, which is interesting. Unfortunately, we don't get to see the actual transformation like we did with Amy, but what we do learn is that these bites are fatal and that any character is expandable. Expendable? Yeah, you wouldn't want to be expandable. Jesus, what am I on about? Expendable. And look at that, episode 6 of this show, and we're finally at the finale. Whew. The end of the season has been on a run of a few slower episodes, but because it's a shorter season, it doesn't seem to affect the runtime as much. It doesn't have the same effect that it does in later seasons, where there are a lot of slow episodes. And in the later seasons, where there's 16 episodes a season, sometimes 20, it starts to drag. Here it's not too bad with 6 episodes. This finale almost feels like a fever dream because it takes place in the CDC, which has running technology, and obviously it's underground, it's completely free of walkers or any danger. It's almost like a utopia. And I kind of love it because it doesn't match the tone of the show at all. This episode on its own completely stands out as like a weird moment for the group. It almost feels surreal. The group meet Dr. Jenner, who is their last hope of a cure, but ultimately we find out that there is no cure, there is no opportunity, and that, you know, Francis held out, and Daryl's going to find out more about that later. A lot later. But they have to deal with the situation as it is.
Stand a rocket launcher.
We are heading!
At the end of this episode, the group is effectively being given the choice of giving up or going on with their lives, and they know that if they go outside they might lose their humanity, they might die horrible deaths. But it's a question of if you just want to accept your life is over and just die, Or if you just want to, oh Jesus, sorry, this is a long video. You get what I mean. I like the moral sort of decision at the end of the episode. Of course, Jackie, who was a really interesting character this season, decides to die. Dr. Jenna as well. They had the whole thing with Andrea. She has a little hissy fit and wants to die, but then Dale brings her out. End of the episode, end of the season. I like this episode. I like this season. 8 out of 10? 8 out of 10 is fair. We need to think of a word. Like, I was thinking max meter. That sounds too much like Moist Critical's moist meter. So think of like a meter for me to rate my shows on. Max meter would be cool, but again, sounds too much like moist meter. Leave a comment. So in conclusion, the entire first season of the show is sort of short but sweet. And I kind of feel like this really suited the show at the time. Again, I'm currently watching season 2 and it's a lot longer. And I, to be honest, remember season 2 being a lot better. I think 6 to 10 episodes would have really worked for each season of The Walking Dead. I think sometimes it's good to have extra runtime to develop your characters, but this show really does work best when they sort of have time to focus on the characters, but they have to move the plot along as well. I think sometimes they can rest on their laurels a bit. I didn't mention Frank Darabont, but of course he wrote this season and a large chunk of season 2. I think he deserves a lot of credit for his writing. I know he's still credited for The Walking Dead, but the way he was kicked out was quite controversial. If I do cover season 2, and if you guys do want that, drop a like on the video. I would love to cover season 2 in a similar video to this. But in that video, I would talk more about Frank Darabont because of the whole controversy that happened during season 2. My only criticism of season 1 is that some of the plot lines do feel unresolved. You know, we don't find out much about the affair that Laurie, Rick's wife, has on him. We don't see much of the resolution of that, but again, it is alluded to in season 2 a lot. This season on its own is quite similar to the first episode. It works really well, and it makes you want to watch more. But when you do watch more, that's when it stops working well. But again, the first season of The Walking Dead, I'm happy to give an 8 out of 10. If you made it this far in the video, massive appreciation to you. Leave a comment, let me know what you think. You know, I love seeing what people think of this show. It's nice for me to drop a positive review on something, because sometimes I talk negatively about things and it does upset some people and I get some nasty comments, and I don't mind a bit of criticism and I don't mind discussing with those people as long as they're friendly. But sometimes it's nice to just discuss things you love, and I think hopefully this is a video that attracts people who love the show, because I personally am a massive fan of the show. I didn't even realise I had the characters there, to be honest, but I've always been a massive fan of this show. It's one of the first shows I ever fell in love with. It's great, so let me know what you think. I've been rambling on for a while now, so I'm gonna leave and stop looking like Eminem from 8 Mile. I'll probably get to that, to be honest. Thank you for watching the video. Goodbye.